Hello, my loves. Hello, hello, hello. My name is Dustina. This is Spiritual Boujee Astrology, and we are going to take a look at the astrological transits of March 31st to April 6th. Now, quick little disclaimer, because you guys know I do normally record this on Sunday mornings. I'm not this week because, again, the weekend where I would normally record, I'm going to be in an event. So this is going to get scheduled to go out on Saturday evening for everybody. Just so you can have one more little reminder that you have until Monday, March 31st, to book your sessions at the discounted rate. Now, I don't like my rates aren't astronomical. Let's be clear about that. My hour-long sessions are normally $50. I've lowered them to $35. My 90-minute sessions are normally $70. I've lowered them to $50. So it's not a huge difference. But at the same time, if you're wanting to take advantage of it, make sure you do that. These are your final little reminders because on April 1st, I'm taking the prices back up to full price, and there will not be a special in the month of April. There will not. So, again, if you're wanting to get sessions with me, if you're wanting to book one-on-one time, if you're wanting to go over your natal charts, if you're wanting to go over your relationship, your family dynamics, whatever's going on in your life, and you want to do that at the discounted rate, final reminder. Okay. Okay. Now, I would normally record this on Sunday mornings, and on Sunday, that's whenever Neptune is going to go into Aries. So I already know that part of what I'm going to describe, I'm describing as clear as possible with my intuition, knowing that I'm not in the energy quite yet. It's going to come through over the weekend. So I might be a little off on intuitive details this time, but I don't think I'm going to be off that much because a lot of it speaks to solidifying the energy that's a long term in place. I've already kind of said that a couple different times, but also knowing that whatever we're solidifying right now is the first primary dominant level. And based off how some of the transits are going to go this week, I know that in some way, shape, or form, some of what we're starting to solidify and do this week, we will be coming back to in some way at the end of the year. And I got reasons for that. But that doesn't mean that our new normal is not going to be our new normal. It doesn't mean whatever we're solidifying this week and the actions that are involved and the energy that's involved is not happening, because it is. But I also know that when we start doing something, we gain a certain amount of experience. Some things after a planet goes retrograde, we start to realize this works and this doesn't. I can do this. I can't do this. And then in some way, shape, or form, by the end of the year, we're going to come back to where we're at right now. And I feel like many of us are going to be ramping up to a next chapter, to a next phase, to a next level, based off of whatever starts to unfold these next 2 weeks, this first week of April and that second week of April leading into the Libra full moon. Now, why am I saying that? We have a lot of energy that's going to come to a peak exact on April 4th, at least astrologically. But every day this week is building up to an energy that's going to happen on Friday, on April 4th. Now, I want to be clear about something from the beginning. For a lot of people, whatever happened over the weekend, you did not have the physical event right there. We have that human effect. I talk about it all the time. And I said that initial energy of Neptune going into Aries downloads. I feel like that's going to be internal vibration. But where would the external come into play? Little bits over the course of the weeks that's going to follow. Some transits that will impact Neptune initially will be lunar transits. That means it's going to be Neptune and the moon in some way. Planetary, we're not going to have for a little bit. We got a couple weeks before we have our first planetary conjunction to Neptune, which still tells me that in some way, shape, or form, even though we have something new in the vibration, it's not all initially taking shape at once. So some people are having the downloads, they're having the epiphanies, they're having the ideas, they're having the things that are going to come through. And for a lot of people, the human effect is either between this week or the following week, the external events will come through that will enforce and shake up and bring forward the full vibration of whatever that first energy tied to Neptune is going to be. Now, in a lot of ways, we have transits that are going to be finalizing some parts of the track. And in other ways, we're going to have certain energies that are starting to take shape that are going to be initiative, initial startup vibrations. And they all come to a peak, all what I'm about to talk about, April 4th. Now, what am I referring to? One, we're going to have our third and final trine between Saturn and Mars. We're going to have our third and final sextile between Uranus and Mars. And that's been going on for a little bit. And some of the things that we are starting to solidify now, some of the initiative energies started through last fall, September and October for many people. There's a handful of people we can take it back to last summer, but more of them is going to be last fall. The other thing that's going to start this week, and I kind of started to mention it last week just a little bit, but I mean, I was very little, and I said that I would put more emphasis on it into this week's episode and the month ahead forecast for the month of April, and that is Saturn's sextile to Uranus. Now, anytime you have these big outer planets that they start making a long-term aspect, that is not just something that's showing up in your individual life. That is collective energy. And that's why I keep saying Neptune going into Aries. That's the new normal. Saturn hitting that sextile to Uranus, knowing that it's going to be the first in the series of 3 between the two of them, is going to really emphasize some kind of additional change and additional energies that we are not accustomed to quite yet. And considering we're talking about Saturn in the higher authority, hitting a sextile to Uranus and simultaneously hitting a trine to Mars for the last time, based off these transits, Uranus for the first time, whatever we are solidifying, Mars trine Uranus, the action, the motivation, the desire, whatever we're starting to really cultivate and take forward in some way, shape, or form, we will come back to it at the end of the year and likely be working on how we level it up, how we take it to the next round, to the next level, to the next heightened sense of the new normal. Now, whenever it comes to the vibration of this week, there's a lot of forward motion. Can there be tensions? Absolutely. Can there be frustrations? Absolutely. Are there still tests in the energy? Yes. Because with Mercury and Venus still being retrograde, I feel like there's still some finalizations, some little last things that need to get wrapped up and understood, some final elements in the testing vibration. And since Mercury's retrograde won't end until the 7th, and Venus's retrograde will not end until the 12th. We're in this energy of like, I have to wrap up these things, do 1 or 2 other things from the past to deal with something, to overcome something, to heal from something, because now they're in Pisces, so I'm going with healing. Deal with some emotional things while also pushing something forward. I got a little bit of unfinished business while also pushing something forward. And that unfinished business doesn't have to be terrible. It could be a couple legal things. It can be something with, old business partners. It can have to do with something from the past that, again, needs to get wrapped up. But then once those final little things are really solidified and wrapped up, it can shift our focus even more to the new normal. And every day in April is shifting us that way. The first half has the mix of unfinished business and new. The second half is a lot more new and waking up more and more into a new. This week is solidifying a lot of the vibration. And in some ways it will be disruptive. In other ways, it's going to be motivating. In some ways, there is going to be judgment calls. In other ways, it's time for something to happen because it's Saturn. In some ways, there will be things tied to authorities and legal matters that we're going to have to deal with because it's Saturn. But in other ways, the drive, the determination, and the focus that starts to take shape also starts to do this whole different level of empowerment every single day and will continue throughout the entire month. So I want to be clear about that. There's a vibration that is setting in each day this week. Some of it is a physical vibration. Some of it is an emotional vibration. Some of it's a logical one. Some of it is a physical one. But each day this week, we start to feel that shift of energy around us. And we're going to know again, even more, that we're in something different, that we're in something new that we've never been in before, in a multitude of ways. Okay, let's get into the transits. Let's get into Monday. Monday. Here's the funny thing about Monday. There are no direct transits to Monday. There's not even indirect transits. You know, sometimes I bring up like anticias and contra-anticias. There ain't none of that either. There is no direct transits to Monday. So in a lot of ways, Monday is, if we're dealing with something, it's like dealing with some people from the past because the moon is in Taurus. So it's in Venus's sign. Venus is in that retrograde energy tied to, in Pisces, coming into the conjunction with the North Node, but even it doesn't go exact until Tuesday. But we can still have some human effect things there of like feeling like our focus needs to handle one or two things from the past, going off that, retrograde vibration, reshape something for the long term because it is a retrograde energy. And a lot of times Venus's retrogrades can more have to do with, loved ones and emotions, old relationships coming back around. We've kind of talked about that before. But it can also have to do with like aesthetic or taste changes, or because of whatever has been brought up. For some people, that's been health related. It's like realizing we got to go clean out the pantry of everything we can't eat anymore. Okay, I can't have this. Doctor said no more sugars, that we have to really focus on our green. So that means we need to clear some of these things out of the out of the pantry, and we can take them to the food bank. We can do something like that. We have to do these little changes that it's time to do them. And parts of Monday can be exactly that. Now, the other thing about Monday is this is Neptune's first full day in Aries. But again, nothing's aspecting it yet. He ain't been messed with yet. So understand that we're getting our first inkling of something that's in the new normal, while also still getting rid of something, clearing something, overcoming something from the past, wrapping something up, finishing an unfinished project, finishing some aesthetic change. And considering this is Venus in her exaltation now, that's a benefit. Venus in retrograde in Aries versus Venus retrograde in Pisces, two very different vibrations. Venus is in her exaltation. So whatever we are redoing, reshaping, rethinking, repurposing, revitalizing, whatever, we know is necessary because Mercury and Jupiter are back in mutual reception. And it is to our benefit by finally letting go of the past, by agreeing to certain changes, by overcoming certain humps. We can know, if we choose to accept and not let our ego get in the way, that this is what's best for everyone. This is what's best for business. Now, again, Saturn sextile to Uranus, they're both at the 24-degree mark, but they're not exact. We are building to this all week. So I want to be clear about that there's still like the timely effect of unexpected change because we are talking about Uranus, just to be clear. Excuse me. Okay. But again, there are no direct transits to the 31st. Nothing direct happens until we get into the 1st, so until April 1st. So happy April Fool's Day, everybody. Let's not prank anybody. This does not feel like a great year to be pranking everybody. These retrogrades are not fun. And if somebody tries to mess with you this day or try to come back around this day, like, oh yeah, be like, oh look, April Fool's block. So funny. So funny. Okay. Now, the first thing that is going to happen is right after midnight at 3:30 a.m. It goes the most exact between 3:28 and 4:19 a.m. And this is when Venus hits her conjunction to the North Node. So you can see this here. Now, again, the moon is in Venus's sign. So in a lot of ways, we feel drawn to reshape, redo, rethink, repurpose. I'm thinking of the physical reason that changes the aesthetic or changes in food. Venus can have to do with food, but whatever we are changing, it's time to change. Mm-hmm. And it's for a long-term change. So again, it's like, that's why I'm like comparing it to like cleaning out the pantry to get all the bad foods out before grandma or grandpa comes back home, because they can't have that stuff no more. Before mom comes back home, before dad comes back home. Because there's been a lot of health shit and I've been so loud about it. Now, right after that North Node conjunction happens, the other thing that starts to play out, and it's kind of almost simultaneous, starts between 4 and 6 a.m. And that's whenever the moon, 23 degrees, 60 minutes, starts its sextile to Mars. Now, that's felt the most exact between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. But I want to keep this going because this isn't the other things that are kind of hitting in the correspondent energy. Between 4 and 6 a.m. again, moon sextile Mars. Saturn is also going to enter this mix. This is going to happen between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. And then in addition to that, between 6 and 8 a.m., the moon's going to hit a conjunction to Uranus. Now, again, at the end of the week, Saturn sextile Uranus, Saturn trine Mars, that all goes exact on the 4th. But there can be something that comes in, human effect Monday for some, a lot more people Tuesday because of this part of the transit, that is just instigating even more and letting us know even more of an unexpected change or a necessary judgment change, because Saturn in that vibration of where an action needs to be overcome or revamped. There can be inspiration or a plug of news because the moon sextile to Mars are like, hey, I got this idea of something new that you can do, because some people have to still have their downloads and the epiphanies. Other people, you need some type of ruling or judgment or a decision to come into play from a higher authority figure, and it's going to have an unexpected vibration. It can come through on the 1st because of the lunar transits, but for more people, it's going to be on Friday. For some people, whatever happens on the 1st can directly impact the 4th, which is Friday. So Tuesday through Friday, these are all very interconnected vibrations of higher authority figures, people in positions of power, making certain judgment calls, something around the elder, changing a dynamic of how we move forward from here, of how we take care of things from here, of how we're nurturing from here. And it means unexpected changes that we weren't planning for previously. And that vibration sets in the entire week, but based off of the lunar vibration right here, it can really put those things into motion. Okay. Now, after the moon's conjunction, sextile, blah, 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 you know where I'm going with that. We're good until about 10 a.m. 10 a.m. to noon. The next thing that's going to happen is that Venus is going to hit a sextile to the moon. Simultaneously, though, between 11:30 and 1:30, so I'm just going to bump this to 11:30. Not only will the moon still be in that sextile to Venus, it will also be entering its sextile from Mercury. And both of these planets are retrograde. So both of these planets are going backwards. They are moving away from the moon. Now, the moon is well placed. The moon is said to be exalted in Taurus. Venus is in her exaltation. Even though Mercury's in his detriment, he's in mutual reception with Jupiter. So it's like, okay, we know we are actively like going in another direction, making certain changes. I can't commit to certain things anymore because I've done these other things. And it's like telling somebody, oh yeah, we're going in this direction now because this is what's best for everybody. This is the logical changes that we're needing to make. These are going to be the changes that are required from the doctor, the guru, the teacher. These are the changes in our mindset because somebody gave us some new influence of how to make an adoption, of how to make a change. And a lot of that energy still speaks to that fate, because we still got those conjunctions to the North Node going on. We're still in eclipse season. We're just a few days past that first eclipse. And whatever can be coming through right here can be just something, again, that's got a long-term energy involved that is needing to be changed with logical changes in mind. Okay, now, after the moon goes through the sextile with Venus and Mercury, it's technically going to go void until the afternoon. The first thing that's going to happen is when the moon goes into Gemini, which is at 3:27 p.m. I got this at 3:30. Between 2:30 and 4:30, Neptune will make its first lunar little hit, but it's a sextile, so it's not heavy. Neptune hits that sextile to the moon. Now, the moon is in Mercury sign. Mercury is retrograde back in Pisces. So we have something that is truly in the process of a transition, a mental transition. We're going through a logical set of steps. We are rewriting something. We are rethinking about something. We are reworking something, restructuring something. And it's very time to do that. We're meal planning, meal prepping in some ways because of that Mercury, Venus, like being right on top of each other, following each other. We're following up on everything else that we just did. We're putting a new plan in motion. We're putting a new energy in motion, even though we're rethinking and reshaping and redoing something from the past. It's like, because something new has come through and solidified and presented itself, that means we also have to make a few alterations, moderations in this other area to, again, make things work for the long haul. And again, considering this is Neptune's sextile to the moon, this is how we're going to start. A lot of this vibration of the rethinking and the reshaping and the repurpose, the re is a part of solidifying that new normal. Now, again, this sextile is going to be felt the most exact between 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So you can see how close it is right here. It's happening at that 0 degrees. So it's still at the start of a new sign. It's still a part of that new vibration, that new beginning that's setting in. And now that the moon is in Mercury sign, there's just logical changes being made. And some people can have an emotional reaction to it. And they're not going to necessarily be happy about it. And that kind of takes me into the next transit. And that has to do with Pluto. Between 8 and 10:30 p.m. So I got a little bit of a wider window here. Pluto is going to go through a trine with the moon. Now, trines are triangles. It's air to air. A long-term vibration, a long-term energy tied to a transitional energy, because the moon is in a mutable sign. Mutable signs are changeable signs. They're transitional signs. Mercury is back in a transitional, mutable sign. But not everybody can be happy about the change. Some people can be really salty about it. Now, in a lot of ways, because Pluto has been at this 3-degree mark for quite some time, and in a lot of ways, he's going to continue to stay here because this is basically getting really close to his like retrograde point. He didn't turn retrograde for like another month, so we got a lot of time, but he ain't going much further than this area. So every time we start to have these little lunations to Pluto, can we have the frustrations and the triggers like we've had before? Absolutely. But the longer Pluto stays in one spot, the more and more we start to realize, like, these are the steps that we do to overcome a fear or overcome a trauma or overcome a frustration. And some people will just have to be told, I know you like your snacks. I'm just going to keep doing the snack example. There's other ways that this is going to come through, but I like this one continuous example right now. I know you like your snacks, but you're gonna have to come up with a different plan. Like, you're gonna have to keep some stuff in your room. You're gonna have to like pick up extra stuff like while you're out. We're not gonna have caffeine in the house anymore. It's not good for grandpa. You know his temptations. All the beer is gonna be out of the house. If you want to have a beer, you have one outside and not in front of grandpa. You understand me? You don't do it. I don't want to hear it. We are making a change to overcome a situation. It's a part of our new normal, and it is meant to help us get over where we've had a power struggle. Some people will like it, other people will not. Now, some people will just be needing to voice some of the recent changes and how it's starting to help them. Others are going to have their own little versions of an attitude, like I just said. But a lot of where we're at right now is logical changes to overcome a fear, to overcome a frustration, to overcome a power struggle. And in some ways, some of us are going to just be talking about what changes we are making in this moment to do exactly that, to overcome a fear, to overcome a trauma, to overcome a power struggle. Even if we're not overcoming it in this moment, it's like talking about, okay, so I hired a lawyer, I hired a nanny, I hired a nurse, I hired a caretaker to help us. So that way we don't have to stress so much, that type of thing. Okay. Now, after the Pluto trine to the moon, not a whole lot else going on. We're just going to keep it going. And we're going to get into the second. We're getting into Wednesday. And Wednesday's not super impactful. And actually, our first transits don't even happen until the afternoon. So Wednesday can be, again, that lingering effect of things from Tuesday. That lingering effect of, again, we're in our new normal. We're in this new vibration. We're in this new thing, while simultaneously, just being clear about that, making additional mental logical changes. So we're in the transitional energy. We're working through some things. We're overcoming some things. And in some ways, we'll need levels of enlightenment or support or additional lessons based off of other people's experience. And that kind of feels like the vibration of Wednesday. So I got the first thing here between 12:30 and 2:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got it at 1:30. The sun is going to go through a sextile to the moon. So you can see this right here. Now the sun, he's in his exaltation. There's so many energies that are like turned around right now, with Venus being her exaltation. The sun is in its exaltation. Mercury and Jupiter are now in mutual reception. We're almost done with like the last two retrogrades that are going on. There's something here that speaks to not a judgment, but an inspiration of additional changes, or somebody giving insight or input of what changes are going to potentially work out better than others, giving additional lessons towards experience, giving just guidance. This is what feels a lot like guidance. The sun sextile to the moon feels a lot like guidance. Adding a level on top of that, as we continue between 5:30 and 7:30 p.m., so I got this now at 6:30, the moon's going to hit a conjunction to Jupiter. Now, I said this in the full moon video specifically to Scorpio risings, but I want to bring it up now with everybody. Jupiter in the area of the sky that he's at the week of the eclipse and this week following, this is the same area he was at last summer, when the disruptive energy started. And a lot of people, some of the disruptions have had to do with wealth. It's had to do with money. It's had to do with hope and luck and beliefs. In some ways, when the moon hits the conjunction to Jupiter, it's like, one, it can solidify that all the changes that we're making right now are going to work out right, or they're going to, we know under that change is necessary, that there's a difference going on. For some people, we're going to get to this point that we're going to be talking about all of the changes that we're working through, Mercury retrograde in Pisces in Jupiter's sign, and what our hope it will lead to after this. Getting additional guidance. Jupiter is the doctor, the guru, the teacher. It can be the nurse. Getting additional support, additional guidance of what else we need to change, of what else we need to adapt, of what else we need to rethink. Some people will have had somebody come back into their life, and then that moon Jupiter hits. It's like, you know what? I'm gonna go talk to I'm gonna go talk to my mom. I'm gonna go talk to my grandma. I'm gonna go talk to my aunts, my uncle, grandpa. I'm gonna go talk to somebody and get their insight on how I handle this person coming back. That can be a part of it too. And I want people to be prepared that a lot of Wednesday feels like, I just need insight. I need to know what I don't know. I need perspective. Okay. Now we're going to keep this going. We're going to get into the third. Now, remember, every day this week, Saturn is building its sextile to Uranus. Saturn is building into its trine with Mars. It's not going exact yet, but I want to bring it up again now, because there is going to be an intensity, a weight, or I don't want to say strain, but like a pulling like a pulling to do, to perform, to go, to act, to react in some ways. And I want people to be prepared for that. Now, the other reason I'm bringing that up is because as the moon continues to go through Gemini, which is going to be in Gemini most of the day, the first thing that's going to happen in the morning time between 8 and 10 a.m., so I got this now at 8:30, is Saturn is going to square that moon. Now, that can be judgment. When it comes to parts of Thursday, a lot of these are squares that we're going to talk about, but they're lunar squares. So for some people, whatever happens on Thursday is going to be like, this is one thing after another. One judgment, one frustration, one disagreement, one argument, one after another that either, again, solidifies, I'm done with you. I don't want to play with you. I don't want you involved anymore. Or it solidifies why all the changes were necessary, or why we're not going to go back to someone else or let somebody else back in. And Saturn being the first square, this is the authority figure. This is a legal aspect. This is a CEO, a boss, an elder, giving some kind of judgment. Now, considering Saturn is playing the big hand of what we're going to be going through on Friday, this can be where we are getting some type of news from a higher figure, from a boss, from an authority figure, from a lawyer, from a judge, from a police officer, that something isn't going to go the way that we're anticipating because of how the rest of the day is going to go with squares, or telling someone it's time to go handle something. But then even though it's time for us to deal with it or time to hear something, there's some part of the rest of the day is like, it's just not going to go everybody's way. There's going to be disagreements. There's going to be separations. There's going to be things that lead to people going in two different directions because of the next two squares. Now, the next one starts between 10:30 and 12:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this now at 11:30 a.m. Here is Venus, 26 degrees, 23 minutes, retrograde, going through a square with the moon, 26 degrees and 19 minutes. So we're pretty close to the exact right here. But Venus is retrograde, moving in the other direction. They're going in other directions. It's like that cartoon stuff, like, which way did he go, George? This way, this way. Which way are you going? I'm going this way. Well, I got to go this way. Well, I've got to finish wrapping this up. Well, I've got to go start this other thing. Well, then go start that other thing because I can't go. I can't do it. I can't help. I can't do that anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. And there's something about both the square to Venus, that's exact right here, and the square to Mercury, that's going to be exactly afterwards between 12:30 p.m. and 1:30 p.m. So here's Mercury square the moon. Mercury is 27 degrees, 27 minutes. Here's the moon, 27 degrees, 29 minutes. Both of them are planets going in the other direction. So it's like after the boss tells you, hey, I need you to go do this, 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 and this. It's like whenever you get there, yeah, I'm not ready. I can't do it. I'm not involved. That ain't my thing anymore. I'm not in charge. I can't. I won't. Not happening. And you're like, but I was told this has to happen. Sorry for you. I'm not helping you. And it can lead to tension and frustration throughout the day. If there is going to be a couple of days that feels like tension and frustration, Thursday and Friday feel like it. Thursday because of all of these lunar squares, Friday because that's when the heightened outer elements go the most exact. All of it can still be playing out right here. Okay, now at 5:51 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go into Cancer. And as soon as the moon goes into Cancer, it too is going to go through a square to Neptune. Now, what I'm looking at is whenever the moon goes into Cancer, it starts with that square. So it's like, I'm starting with a push to do something different, or do something for the first time, or to look at something for the first time. Now, for some people, this initial push, if you're not expecting it because it's that 0-degree square of Neptune to the moon, it can spur an emotional reaction of like, I can't handle one more thing going wrong today. I don't have the capacity for your angst, for your anger, for your frustration, for whatever it is when we get to that final square throughout the day. Now, some people will have the capacity. It'd be like all the tension from the day has reached this peak of like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going in a whole different way. And when the moon goes into Cancer in its own home sign, it feels more able and capable of doing something different. And Neptune's vibration sends inspiration. It sends a belief. It aids in our beliefs. It aids in something that we weren't anticipating. And it's like we get support in this whole other area for the first time, because again, this is the first square between Neptune and the moon, and it's happening at 0 degrees of Aries. And some part of this can be, again, inspiration moving forward, but also can be like that first lie from a new person, because there's a lot of times that Neptune can have to be with the lies, the fraud, and the deception. And we need to be real aware of the conversations that are going to be starting whenever the moon goes into Cancer, especially that very first minute whenever the moon goes in and starts that square from Neptune. Now, again, this is going to be felt the most exact between 5 and 7 p.m., but this can spark something that's encapsulating the entire timeline. The moon is in Cancer. And this spark will be something new, something we've never dealt with before, because again, new vibration, new energy, new stuff. Okay. Now, after the square between Neptune and the moon, ain't nothing going on. We're going to keep it going. We're going to get into the fourth, and the fourth is where a lot of the energy gets real heightened. So we're going to start with Mercury's conjunction to the North Node. Now, this is going to be felt the most exact between 1:08 and 2:29 a.m. Central Standard Time. So I got this at 1:30. Here is the North Node, head of the dragon. Here is Mercury retrograde, the ruler of communication in our logical brain, being retrograde. Something from the past, it's time for it to come back around. It feels necessary for it to come back around. And it can still bring out some emotional responses because now the moon is in Cancer. But it's like, because this thing has now come back around at exactly this time, our emotional response is exactly what it needs to be, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. Let's be clear about that. Now, there's other things that are being decided upon throughout the day. Mercury's conjunction to the North Node. That speaks to the change in laws, communication, labor, technology. Labor, I'm saying because we still have the South Node in Virgo, and Virgo can be very much associated with labor, but we got to have a lot of timely communicated changes that really kind of ripple through this entire week, but like most heightened on Friday. So let's keep this going. Between 8:53 and 12:15. So 8:53 a.m. Central Standard Time, 12:15 in the afternoon. So I'm going to get this to 10:30. That's fine. This is where we go through the exact sextile between Saturn, here's Saturn, 24 degrees, 55 minutes, and Uranus, 24 degrees, 55 minutes. Now, I want to be clear about this. This is the first one for these two. The second one will be in August 11th to be exact. The third and final one will be January of 2026. This sextile is the start of something. But we're in a completion, level up, finalizing, setting something up vibration simultaneously. So whatever new is coming through will have layers and levels beyond it later on. And I'm still saying that. But let's keep going as to why. Saturn sextile to Uranus, you can see it right here. The sextile between Uranus and Mars is going to go exact between 5:29 and 6:36 p.m. Central Standard Time. So I'm going to take this to 6:30. Boom, there you go. Here is Uranus, 24 degrees, 56 minutes. Here's Mars, 24 degrees, 56 minutes. Because of the judgment, the idea of something from the authority figure, Saturn sextile to Uranus. Uranus is telling something unexpected, inspiring something exciting and unexpected, providing something to Mars as to how Mars needs to go. And sometimes it's just like, once you tell something to somebody, there's no going back. That can be this kind of vibration, because immediately after this, between 6:37 and 8:53, so I'm just going to bump this an hour. We're going to go from 6:30 to 7:30. This is whenever Saturn's trying to Uranus goes the most exact. It's actually felt between 2 degrees, or say 24 degrees and 57 to 58 minutes. That's what we're seeing right here. So here's Saturn, 24 degrees, 58 minutes. Here's Mars, 24 degrees and 58 minutes. This is solidifying. Now we're going to be in this vibration all day long. This is the final one, the final energy between Saturn and Mars. The last 2 times this occurred, one was on September 30th of last year. The other was February 9th. The sextile between Uranus and Mars, the last 2 times that occurred was October 24th and January 23rd. So Saturn and Uranus's vibration towards Mars, we're wrapping something up. I'm still saying that. But Saturn and Uranus's vibration together, we're starting something new. We're starting something up. We're instigating something. So again, whatever new thing is starting to take shape, that change in our vibration, that change in our ideas and our mindset, all throughout this week, will come back around to later, and we will be amplifying it even more by the end of the year, going into the start of 2026. All the new vibration. Okay, now, in addition to this, between 8 and 10 p.m., which I'm still not moving it, it's still at 8:30, this is when the sun is going to square the moon. This is our first quarter moon. So usually first quarter moons have a buildup to them anyways. So we're amplifying the buildup. We're amplifying the changes. We're even pushing. And given the sun in Aries can kind of have a ramp up towards ego, Mercury's conjunction to the North Node can also have a ramp up towards ego. Some people's egos are going to come through, and it is going to push an emotional response. Now, considering Mars in this trine to Saturn is also hosting that sun, it's hosting that Neptune, it's hosting Chiron also, their energy can be a part of what he's taking forward. And that push, even though if it has some emotional response for some people, can have a motivation kicking in a whole other way beyond what I've already talked about in this moment. So we can, again, feel a lot of things towards a push, motivation, ramp up, taking something forward, taking something into the new normal, while still remembering we still got a couple things to wrap up from the past. Okay. I'm tired of harping on it. Let's keep it going. Let's get into the 5th. And the 5th has a lot of lunar transits to it. I just want to prepare you guys for that. So it tells me that a lot of people are going to have a very busy weekend. That's not a bad thing. First things first, Chiron is going to hit a square to the moon. Now, this is going to go the most exact between 9 and 11 a.m. So I got this at 9:30. Here is Chiron, 22 degrees, 34 minutes. Here's the moon, 22 degrees, 20 minutes. So we're just before this square goes exact. But Chiron, he's the wounded healer. There's a fix. There's an attempt to fix. There are some of the actions that we're taking, we're hoping are going to be a solution. Even if it's disruptive, we're trying to create a solution. We are still in the Saturn-Mars trine all day. We're still in the Uranus sextile to Mars all day. Like, we're still in this vibration. It's not over with. And the whole idea is like, we can be talking to somebody from the outside, telling them what changes have happened, but not realizing that some part of it was a solution. Sometimes we're going to go talk to somebody asking their experience, what they dealt with when they dealt with a situation, and seeing what they did to fix something, to heal something, to overcome something. It could have to do with their week. It could have to do with something completely different. It could also have to do with that health stuff that we've talked about. Like, hey, I know you had to get off the sugar because of diabetes and all that. Like, what kind of changes did you make? Where did you have any cookbooks or any websites that you visited for regular stuff? It is giving additional insight to how we fix something, how we care for something, how we're changing for something. Okay, moving this along. Between 1:30 and 3:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, This is where the moon's going to reactivate part of the stuff from Friday. So I want to actually get this to 3:30 because this is going to encompass all of what I'm about to talk about. So that is Saturn is going to trine the moon. You can see that's almost exact. Uranus is sextiling the moon. You can see it's almost exact. And then between 2 and 4 p.m., the moon is also going to hit its conjunction to Mars. This is like having something hit a peak throughout the week. And then we get to Saturday, and it's like you get to go talk to your friend, talk to your buddies, and you get to tell them all of the actions, the reactions, the changes, the new thing taking shape, the new plans taking shape. We can be committing to something, we could be confirming something. This can be boisterous in some ways, or it's just that extra layer solidifying everything else that I've already talked about that has been a part of the entire week. Or it can be delegation of like moving forward, you have to pick up the kids each week, or you got to pick them up on Fridays. We're not going to do drop off anymore. Like you have to pick them up from school because my job has now taken precedence. So we have to make a change. So moving forward, and some people might not like this change. And there it is the moon conjunct Mars. So there can be tension and there can be frustrations and there can be disruption. Other people are just going to understand that this is how we're going to do it moving forward. We have no other choice. This is what's necessary. Okay. Now, the next thing that's going to happens between 2:30 and 4:30 p.m. So I'm still at 2:30. And this is where the moon starts its trine from Venus. Now, Venus is retrograde. So I'm going to move that a little bit just so we can get a little bit more exact. Yeah, it's almost exact right here. So here's Venus, 25 degrees, 40 minutes. Here's the moon, 25 degrees, 37 minutes. The moon is still in that conjunction to Mars while it's entering the trine from Venus. So going back to the food idea, that can still be feeding into this. Also, like because somebody else just told you of a disruption, it's like talking to somebody else going, well, I can't do it this way. Somebody else is going to have to do it. I don't know that that's it's going to be an option. You usually have the kids on the weekends anyway. So if you can't pick them up from the school on your day, then I think you need to come up with a solution because I'm taking care of everything else. I don't want to do it that way. I don't like there's still gonna be some potentials of tension and frustration. And there's still something solidifying in here of like, because all these new things have lined up, another change is necessary, and I can't continue something the same way. And with the trine with Venus, that speaks to it. Now, between 5 and 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to go through a trine with Mercury. But Mercury is still retrograde. Mercury is still going in the other direction. So it's like, well, I can't pick them up. So I'm going to try to find if somebody else can start picking them up. Or I'm going to start making some calls and see if mom can't do it, or my brother can't do it, or my sister can't do it, or my cousin, or whatever, these kinds of things. We're going to have some energy of like, because so many changes are happening. Some people can't get on board. Some people cannot commit. Some people cannot connect. And that is going to lead to something that needs to start taking shape, but is not necessarily all going to take shape all in one moment. Now, after the moon goes through its trine with Mercury, it's going to go void. So I don't know that everybody is going to necessarily reach solutions whenever it comes to Saturday night. However, there can be some surprises. And this takes me now to the next transit. Now, what I'm going to describe next happens the most exact between 11 p.m. and 1 a.m. on the 6th. And that is whenever Neptune goes through a trine with the moon, and the moon goes into Leo. The moon is going to go into Leo at 11:35 p.m. Central Standard Time. Now, this is a whole different vibration once the moon goes into Leo. And now, if you look at the fact that the moon in Leo this time has the sun in Aries, the sun in the exaltation, solutions are more likely to come to light. And there can be a little bit of an empowerment in that energy. Neptune is in a fire sign now at the 0-degree mark. The moon is in a fire sign now at the 0-degree mark. Some of the solutions to all of the disruptions that came through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday will start to present themselves more on Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday of the next week. So there's something here about how we get to a solution and how we do something different. And it is going to be something new. Once the moon goes into Leo and hits that first trine from Neptune, we're in new. But this new feels a lot more empowering because it is the moon in Leo in the sun sign. So that's a good thing. That's going to be helpful. Now, again, this trine between Neptune and the moon right here, it is at 0 degrees. For some people, you might find one or two solutions on Saturday. For other people, you might have the idea of a solution on Saturday, but you can't even make the call or do anything until Sunday. And that'll be the human effect. A lot more people, solutions, ideas, the new way of doing things, it's going to be a little bit more on Sunday. Okay. Now, Neptune's going to hit the trine to the moon between 11 p.m., like I said, on the 5th, 1 a.m. on the 6th. You can see it right here. Keep this going a little bit further between 4:30 and 4:54 a.m. So I'm just about this to 4:30. This is when the sun goes through its exact sextile to Jupiter. Now, again, we will be in this vibration all day long. This isn't nearly as heavy as the other heightened energy that we're still lingering from between Saturn, Uranus, and Mars. But this is the sun in Mars's sign. And we have a little bit of triplicity going on with the moon being in the sun sign, the sun being in Mars's sign, and Mars being in the moon sign. So there's a little bit of triplicity here of like, we can start to find a long-term solution in the rethinking, the reshaping, the redoing of certain things. The other thing about the 6th is this is the last full day of Mercury retrograde. It's going to go direct on the 7th, goes direct on Monday. But we're at a peak spinning point of turning something around, logically turning something around. So there is the encompassing of some kind of solutions that are going to come through starting Sunday and taking us into the next week. Because again, Mercury is about to turn direct. Now, I'm bringing up Mercury because, of course, Mercury is hosting Jupiter. We have this sextile between the sun and Jupiter. This isn't heavy energy. It's supportive energy. It's an ego check while also getting support, getting lessons, getting information, the doctor, the guru, the teacher, something about wealth, something about prosperity. Like there's elements that speak to support starting to come through on Sunday. And this is a major emphasis as to why. It goes the most exact, like I said, at 4:30 in the morning, but we are in the energy all day long. Okay. Now, our next transit is going to go exact a little bit after this, and we're going to bump this just about 2 hours to 6:30. Because what's going to happen next happens simultaneously. First things first. Between 5:30 and 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time, the moon is going to hit this opposition to Pluto. Some of us, whoever we have to ask for help, whoever we are talking to, we don't like talking to him. It's not an easy conversation. It's not fun. Pluto can be very triggered and traumatized and can really have a lot of frustrations of what we're trying to overcome and deal with. Simultaneously, Venus is going to go through her second trine to Mars. So here's Venus, 25 degrees, 29 minutes. Here's Mars, 25 degrees, 28 minutes. This is going to go the most exact between 6:46 and 7:50 a.m. So we're in this energy in the morning. And with the moon's opposition to Pluto, all of this is happening morning. It tells me that we get those first rounds of solutions. Now, Venus, again, moving in an opposite direction, but Venus is in her exaltation. The sun is hitting that sextile to Jupiter while Venus is in that trine to Mars. So again, it's like so many things have changed. Somebody can't do something a certain way anymore. I need support in another way. Do you have an idea? Can you give me help? Can you help me get over this? Can you help me face a fear, a frustration, a power struggle? Moon opposite Pluto. Can you help me overcome? Can we find a solution? Can we do something different? Can we find something? And this intermixing of certain things tells me, again, we can find some solutions starting on Sunday. But solutions will not be specific to just Sunday. It'll be something that starts to take shape going into next week. Because again, the 6th, that's Sunday, that's the last full day of Mercury in retrograde. And after we get through the 7th, Mercury will be direct. And there's something about more solutions, more ideas, more logic going into next week. Now, we'll still be in Venus retrograde next week. Okay. But Mercury will be direct. And that means we'll have a turnaround and a new beginning of new starts and the transition. These first 2 weeks of April speak to, yes, the new beginning, but also transitioning everything else to match the new energy, to match the new normal, to match that new beginning. So I'm thinking of the most layman's ways that that can help. If something's happened to grandpa and we need treatments, maybe we need additional nurses to come into the house. Grandpa, grandma, mom, dad, it don't matter. Some of us, if we're going to work now, we're going to need different support with taking care of the kids, somebody else needing to pick them up. This is why I'm going off of like, we still have to make some changes to make the new normal solidify and set in. We need the dog sitter. We need a dog walker. We need somebody to sit with mom. We need somebody else to do the doctor's appointments. We need something else to happen. We need to solidify these other little changes. And as this week progresses, we understand what is solidifying and why the changes are necessary. And some people are going to be reluctant and resistant. I don't like change. Wah. Get over it. Change is necessary. Change will help take things forward. Every day in April is getting us accustomed to a new normal. What are you doing new? Are you changing something in your job? Are you changing something in your routine? Are you taking something to the next level in your business? Are you launching something new? Did you get a promotion? And by getting that promotion, what is that now entailing in your personal life? If you're going from working overnights to having to work days, and then the overnights, you were picking up your kids all the time. Now somebody else is going to have to pick up the kids. So I feel like for a lot of people, whatever the changes are, they are the most mundane things and not necessarily detrimental. And we need just as much the mundane changes as we need to understand the big picture setting that we're going into. And that's what a lot of this week is going to be. Can there be some tension? Can there be some arguments? Absolutely. The minute you talk to certain people in your life, especially if they still have toxic behaviors of like, I need your help, I need you to do something different. Well, what does that do for me? And there's always that self-serving, ego-like nature. And I cannot ignore it. I know it's going to come through. There's so many people that the only way they'll ever do something extra for someone else is if they're getting something out of in return. Are you going to pay me? Are you going to do this for me? Are you going to, whatever it is. But I know that there's business changes, and I know that there's routine changes, and I know that there's ambition and motivation and drive setting in right now. And to make that vibe, to make that work, to make that happen, there's going to have to be other changes in the most mundane, daily task life way to make it all work, stick, and do what we need it to do. It's that simple. This new energy starts to solidify this week. It starts. And some of that new energy, for it to solidify, that means we need some decisions, some unexpected changes, some exciting changes to come from people in positions of authority. And that's what's coming through with Saturn's trine to Mars, Saturn's sextile to Uranus. We need that first round of decisions to push that new vibration, that new energy, that new motivation, and that new empowerment. We need their decision. And some people might not actually experience or go into that decision until the end of the week. And that's why I was saying not everybody is going to have the physical event from the eclipse and Neptune going into Aries all up front. Some are going to have a series of things unfold for us to understand what that new normal is going to be. Some will know instantaneously, others need other things to happen. You'll know where you're at. You'll figure it out. And you'll let me know. All right. Okay. I love and appreciate every single one of you. Thank you for all of the shares. Thank you for the follows. Thank you for all of the comments. I appreciate every single person. I love you so much. I will talk to everybody very, very soon. Subscribe.